until this point, many of the YouTuber related controversies we've talked about have, at the very least, someone making a decent point. But for our next controversy, I just think it's completely ridiculous, as this one received a lot of unwarranted backlash, and I think it'd be pretty criminal of me not to include it. And that's for Battle for Dream Island. Created by the Huang brothers Michael and Carrie, BFDI is a show where inanimate objects compete in elimination style challenges for a chance to win a huge prize. Hosted by the announcer Speaker Box, or the Algebrarians. The series has been on YouTube for well over a decade on the Jack and Jellyfy channel, and it's honestly one of the most impressive independent animated series on the entire platform. The two brothers who started by making a silly show about talking objects has grown into one of the biggest forces in indie animation. With great storytelling, hilarious characters, and amazing animation, their success is certainly well deserved, as the channel has well over 3 million subscribers, as they patiently wait to see what happens next in the series. Throughout all the success, the Huang brothers have managed to maintain a remarkably clean reputation, aside from having occasional issues with YouTube, and fans disagreeing with certain viewer votes in the series, both of which were either outside factors that Michael and Carrie couldn't control, or simply matters of personal opinion. They've stayed out of any major controversy. That changed when they announced their collaboration with Youtooz. For the most part, people were simply upset because BFDI was working with Youtooz. I know it sounds like I just repeated myself, but hear me out. If it isn't already obvious from how long I've been talking about this company throughout this entire series, Youtooz have been involved in quite a few controversies over the years. Some of these controversies are completely false, while others raise valid concerns. Regardless, many people began asking, why is BFDI collaborating with such a controversial company? Now, to be clear, nearly every content creator who collaborated with Youtooz has received some kind of backlash like this from their audience. And normally I try to not include these sort of controversies, because if I did, 1, we'd have to include every single YouTuber who has ever worked with Youtooz, and 2, people usually repeat the exact same talking points. However, I'm making an exception here, because many of the arguments people made were questionable at best. And as a personal fan of the BFDI series, I feel like I can speak better on this topic. Like I said, the biggest thing I noticed was people recycling the same false allegations, misleading talking points, or extremely old controversies in an attempt to discredit Youtooz. But they would bring up these controversies that happened years ago without providing the full context or acknowledging how the company has changed since then. There are far too many allegations to go over here, and I've already addressed most of them in my previous Youtooz videos, so let's take a look at one specific example, the Pepe products. Youtooz produced products for Pepe without getting permission from the original creator. However, what people conveniently leave out is that this happened back in 2019, around 7 years ago. Since then, if you actually look at Youtooz's catalog, they've consistently worked with creators, companies, and rights holders to properly license their products. Does that make what happened with Pepe okay? Of course not. But it's also important to see when someone clearly learned from their mistakes. And holding this mistake over a company's head forever, even after they corrected their behavior, simply isn't realistic. This became a reoccurring pattern with many of the criticisms I saw. I'm not saying everyone was intentionally spreading misinformation, but many people clearly didn't do research before making these arguments. For example, one Twitter user named Kendi posted several allegations against Youtooz, then in the replies would link to a Tumblr post containing even more accusations. The problem was that the Tumblr post wasn't a reliable source. Many of the links either led to deleted tweets, or failed to provide the proper context necessary to understand what actually happened. In fact, several of the controversies listed here aren't even possible to properly research anymore because the original posts no longer exist and aren't archived. Simply put, using this Tumblr page as your source isn't a good idea. But then, Kendi would link 2 Youtooz controversies related videos. And could you guess which ones Kendi linked? Both of my original Youtooz videos. You know, the ones where I spent hours researching and debunking all the allegations? Like, let's get this straight. You make and link claims about Youtooz, only to then link videos where the claims you made are debunked. With all due respect to Kendi, in my opinion, it's pretty clear that they hadn't actually watched the videos. Instead, it seemed like they saw the scary buzzwords like controversial in the title, and assumed I was just repeating the same criticisms everyone else has already made. Again, I'm not saying everyone involved was acting maliciously, it just seemed like people were jumping to conclusions without properly researching the topics they were discussing. Now, to be fair, there was one criticism that I saw that was at least understandable. Some people pointed out that the brothers already have their own merch store, where they sell tons of BFDI related products. So they questioned why the brothers would choose to work with Youtooz if they already have their own store. While I don't necessarily disagree with that, but I also think there are several advantages to collaborating with a company like Youtooz. For starters, Youtooz is an established brand that has collaborated with such huge franchises like Five Nights at Freddy's, Minecraft, Halo, Chainsaw Man, Godzilla, and even more. Having BFDI associated with these franchises helps establish it as a legitimate, recognizable brand rather than just another internet show. Realistically, that's a huge opportunity for Michael and Carrie. Having your series placed right next to franchises helps demonstrate just how far BFDI has come. Collaborating with a company like Youtooz is valuable from a networking perspective and opens doors for future opportunities. Beyond that, it also allows the brothers to produce products that they normally wouldn't. The Jack and Jellyfish store mainly focuses on plushies, with the occasional pin or figure. Youtooz already have years of experience producing figures, plushies, and so many other things. Instead of learning how to manufacture everything yourself, partnering with a company that already specializes in this area just makes common sense. Even financially, it also benefits the series. BFDI isn't some tiny animation project anymore. Episodes on average are about 30 minutes long, and involve over 30 people working on the animation, voice acting, writing, editing, music, and so much more. Producing episodes on this scale isn't cheap, so selling limited edition merchandise for a company like Youtooz helps generate additional revenue that can be reinvested into the production of future episodes. With all that being said, I'm not saying that you have to like the collaboration, but at the very least bring some strong arguments, as most of the criticism was just people grasping at straws. And it's also worth mentioning that most of the backlash stayed entirely on Twitter, as across nearly every other platform, the collaboration was received fairly positively. And even then, many members of the BFDI community actively defended the collaboration, which honestly surprised me. Even after the controversy died down, people continued to discuss and defend Youtooz, and even directly named me in my research.
But the fact of the matter is that Youtooz has gotten themselves into hot water over the years, with most of the controversies being blown out of proportion. Obviously not saying that the company is free from criticism, because we are talking about the same company that partnered with the NFT Bros. But a lot of people's reasons for hating Youtooz are situations taken out of context. Not denying people's bad experiences with them, because let me tell you, there are plenty of them I've seen. But Youtooz actually does seem to do a good job with correcting their mistakes and learning from them. Again, refer to Andre's videos for more details.
Despite of the backlash, the collaboration still continued, as the character 4 received a plushie and released on June 27th of 2025, and even continued further with a figure of the character 2, who was released on January 30th of 2026. I personally really like this one, especially because Michael Huang himself drew the artwork for 2's box. It's a small touch, but it helps make the figure feel more authentic. And the BFDI community also seemed to really enjoy the figure as well as the previously mentioned 4 plushie. As of me talking about this, it's still unclear whether more BFDI Youtooz products are planned, though before 2 was released, Austin mentioned that there were more products in the works, and the character Leafy has also appeared in one of Youtooz' promotional posts. So it's possible we may see more BFDI products, although nothing's been officially confirmed, so we'll simply just have to wait and see. While the BFDI Youtooz controversy certainly happened, and some people are still upset about it, none of the backlash actually stopped the collaboration from happening, and I'm genuinely really happy about that. I really enjoy BFDI and Youtooz, so to see both of them working together was a weird dream come true for me, and I'm so happy to own such unique pieces of BFDI and Youtooz history.